Hello world, Theet here, and in this video I will tell you the story of how I survived from days 7,000 to 8,000 in hardcore Minecraft. In the past 1,000 days, I built a water ocean in the Nether, finished the central core of my Void megabase, and transformed my Nether hub into an overgrown fortress. If you haven't seen it already, I highly recommend the 6969 days video at top right first. It'll explain a few things that might not make a lot of sense otherwise. We begin our story on day 7,000, 31 game days after I left off last time, dumping gravel into a massive lava ocean in the Nether to completely clear it out. The majority of the lava ocean was drained by this point, but there were still a few challenging holdouts left. The first of them was this massive stretch of soul sand valley near a bastion remnant. Not only was it filled with soul sand, shocker, I know, which broke all the gravel I dumped on it, but it was also filled with gas, which proved to be a pernicious nuisance throughout the construction of Nether Jungle. Flying machines did help somewhat, except with the gas, but they were more to ameliorate the monotony than an actual time save. Sadly, the only reliable way to clear the lava out of this place was to spam fire resistance potions and walk around under the lava, placing scaffolding over any soul sand. Then I could dump gravel onto the scaffolding and quickly clear everything away by breaking the scaffolding, which was actually super satisfying. You see, I can just... Okay, no, that was a bad idea. And so the lava ocean stood no chance against my persistence, and within a mere few dozen hours, the Soul Sand Valley portion was drained forever. That left only one small section in the Nether Wastes, one last section for the lava to make its last stand, and with a few flying machines and a few dozen shulkers of gravel, even that was gone. Every last drop consumed by my gravel by day 7230. 1/3 lava sources were cleared. The lava ocean was dry. I would say that this was only the beginning, but that would be cliched and inaccurate, because this wasn't even the beginning. This was just clearing the site, so construction could truly begin. I next built a 20 furnace super smelter in my nether hub, which when combined with my basalt generator could churn out colossal volumes of smooth basalt faster than I could even place it. This was important because every single bit of exposed netherrack in all of Nether Jungle would have to be replaced with smooth basalt. There's no time like the present, so I immediately got to work, stripping away the angry red netherrack and replacing it with the calmer, more muted, smooth basalt. The work proceeded at lightning pace across the entire nether waste area, only slowing down when I got to the far more complicated terrain of the basalt deltas. Here I didn't want to just blindly replace the netherrack with basalt, because all those holy basalt spikes didn't really fit with my plan, nor would holy smooth basalt spikes. So I smoothed out the jagged terrain, making hills and valleys, and even adding a few trenches, whose purpose will become clear soon enough. Then, in the Soul Sand Valley, the terrain was once again flatter, but I had to create a complex coastline at the edge of the lava ocean, making sure the slope from the ocean floor to the shore was reasonably smooth and didn't look completely dumb. Partially dumb is okay, but completely dumb is a step too far. I also noticed that the ground was riddled with ghast holes, so just to get back at the get back them again after I killed them, I repurposed these as entrances to a massive underwater cave system, though it'll be a few thousand days before I actually build them. I also figured I'd raise the ocean floor around the bastion to near sea level, effectively surrounding the bastion with a shallow sea, because shallow seas are awesome. Oh, and I also dug this cenote type thing in the southeast corner of the ocean, because reasons. And then once again, my terraforming venture was done, except for a small section of nether waste at the northwest corner. But I didn't want to turn all of this into ocean, because I thought it would be cool to turn it into another large cave complex, modeled after the Deep Dark. Though that's not going to be possible until 1.19, so for now just enjoy this bay and river system that will eventually be subterranean. With the ocean floor properly terraformed, it was now time to bring in the water. Yes, water in the nether. I already got a bunch of water on the nether roof in my 6969 days video, but now it was time to spread it across the lower nether, replacing the lava that once stood there menacingly. I figured this would be pretty easy to do. Just use kelp and bone meal to spread water around the coastline, and then the rest of the ocean would fill itself in. Something that could be done in a single stream. But really, it never is that simple, is it? Indeed, the chaotic terrain of the soon-to-be ocean floor meant that I had to go in and fill every nook and cranny with kelp, spending an obscene amount of bone meal and getting more kelp than I knew what to do with. And even though it took 4 streams instead of 1, this task was eventually done. And after an extremely satisfying day of breaking all the kelp, I had an empty water ocean in the nether. A blank canvas that I could transform into something else. An area that I could slowly convert from a molten hell to a lush and beautiful place full of water and life, much like the evolution of the Earth itself. But first I needed a way to breathe underwater, a somewhat atypical problem to have in the Nether admittedly, but quite a pressing one because drowning is fairly annoying, especially in Minecraft. So I set up a bunch of conduits scattered across the Nether in the trenches I dug earlier, 3 to be precise. and in each one got a custom shrine to house it, because just having conduits sitting in the ocean would be a bit typical and kind of boring, whereas having random mysterious buildings underwater kind of adds a sense of mystery. With the ability to breathe now secured, I could move on to other, more interesting tasks, like creating life in the Nether. I figured that rather than having blobs of vegetation wherever, I would for once let there be some rhyme and reason to the stuff I do in the block game, and make a web of interconnecting paths out of vegetation along the ocean floor. I began with seagrass, using bone meal to make wide swaths of greenery, and then went in later and added in a bit of kelp for depth, sea pickles for lighting, and finally bits of glow lichen for some added texture. Speaking of texture, I felt like the smooth basalt floor was looking a bit bare, so I filled up the deepest parts of the ocean floor with black stone and faded it into the smooth basalt to produce this nice gradient effect, and also sprinkled in a bit of magma for those sweet, sweet bubble columns. Oh, and I also made a couple of blackstone trenches, including this absolute unit that goes all the way down to Y11. I also managed to make these sick underwater volcanoes using the same technique, plus campfires with hay bales under blackstone slabs. Don't ask me how those campfires work underwater. Seriously, don't. This whole build is filled with illegal water in the Nether, and you're questioning underwater campfires. So to break up the monotony a bit further, I ventured into the deepest, darkest depths of, drumroll please, the overworld, where I picked up some deep slate, which in cobbled form blends well with smooth basalt, as well as deep slate ores, which also do, and look amazing with complementary shaders, unlike me. Some small but highly customized coral reefs filled with sea pickles and shroom lights for lighting, and those weird amethyst calcite glowstone formations just about wrapped it up for the ocean. But this is supposed to be Nether jungle, not Nether ocean, and I needed to start making the rest of the Nether look the part. The first step was transforming the Nether hub from a homogeneous mass of blackstone and nether brick into a lush, overgrown fortress teeming with life. So I added masses of vegetation to the Nether hub, beginning with humble glow lichen and vines, and moving on to more exotic stuff like shroom lights covered in azalea leaves, moss, random leaves, and even green candles, which kind of look like vegetation, and also provide lighting. I also changed the beacon colors from white to blue-green, and finally got the beacons on the north side to actually work after procrastinating for over 3,000 days because I was too lazy to break little bedrock. And finally, with 8,000 days drawing close, I began working on dry land, replacing the netherrack with softer grays and greens. I'm not currently able to stream due to not having internet access, so I don't have much footage of this, but I was able to make some decent hills out of moss and a few clay beaches, and even a fancy cliff face made of more smooth basalt with moss sprinkled here and there, though I had to remove a vast chunk of netherrack to make room for it. That's the thing, the Nether isn't built like the overworld, and there are tons of floating islands and weird outcroppings I'm going to have to remove in order for this place to look halfway decent. And right before day 8,000 arrived, I managed to do a bit of repair work on the overgrown fortress itself. My beautiful leaf formations kept burning down, and while I originally blamed pyromania ghasts, I later realized that the real culprit was lava under the fortress, which I never bothered to drain, was causing fire to spread and burn down my beautiful vegetation. Luckily, this was a fairly simple fix. I just had to bury the lava. And with that, I reached 8,000 days in hardcore Minecraft. But wait, Nether Jungle wasn't the only project I was working on all this time. There was another. I'm talking, of course, about Void Station. For the past 1,000 days, I've been alternating between Nether Jungle and Void Station every 100 days, and now it's time to show you what I've accomplished with Void Station. 1,000 days ago, there were only 4 floors, and the side towers were not even half done. But starting around day 7100, I began expanding the side towers. I have plans to fill them with more farms and decoration, but as of now, the only ones I've got are a small iron farm with no decoration, and a huge cobblestone farm with lots of decoration, so I don't need to go back to the overworld and make redstone components. The other towers will eventually have a melon and pumpkin farm, so I can make my void trading setup even more OP, but I'm waiting for access to allays. With the side towers looking a bit more balanced, I advanced to the 5th floor of the main tower. The main feature of this was a PvP arena with tons of seats surrounding it, but I admit I may have gotten a teensy bit carried away for a feature that will literally never be used because this is a single player world. I even went to the trouble of starting a raid and bringing 2 Ravagers to the outer end at great personal risk to myself. Not really, and sticking them in a cage and adding a whole room full of machinery for a piston door that can descend and release the Ravagers. To slaughter innocent villagers is something, I suppose. I mean, villagers aren't people and don't have rights, so I guess that's as good a purpose as any. In addition to filling the seating area with tons of plant life, I also filled the area behind the seating with more plants, tons of armor stands stacked with glimmering villager armor, and so on and so forth. Even this random end crystal, which blew up a massive chunk of Void Station while I was trying to get it positioned, because I didn't realize that end crystals explode if you look at them funny. I really wanted to not have any dead space anywhere in this build. Everything needed to have a purpose and tell a story, to be there for a reason. And so I advanced to the 6th floor. I was running out of ideas and also wanted to still have some room for the roof, so I started working on the residential section next. I started with these highly explosive peon quarters using actual beds despite their explosiveness and general lack of utility in the end, except if you're a villager, of course. I wanted a very cramped and cluttered look, but also sprinkled in a few banners and plants to add a bit of color and personality, to each of the bunk beds. But not everyone who inhabits Void Station is a peon, because, I mean, I exist and I'm not some stupid villager. But even lore-wise, well, every space station needs a crew of officers to rule over the peons with an iron fist, and they're not gonna live in such cramped conditions. So I added a 7th level, filled with luxurious gardens, personalized cabins, each with their own decor, and the tallest fountain in the end, the axolotl fountain, which, as the name suggests, is guarded by axolotls, and as the name doesn't suggest, is 13 meters tall. I had to be very careful not to use any full blocks, because it's right above the end gateway, and that would break my void trading system, but a creative arrangement of slabs and stairs is the next best thing. And then above the officer quarters, one-upping even them, is the captain's suite, which has not one, but 4 rooms, and many windows looking out over the void. Though this isn't yet complete, as I wanted to do some work on the roofs of Void Station first, I ended up making several domes out of purple and glass, and put sea lanterns behind the glass to make the roofs glow brightly, especially with shaders. The end result looks actually not terrible. It's chaotic enough to not be boring, but orderly enough to make sense. And with a few more small tweaks, the roof was done, and with it, the central core. But Void Station needed something more. Something that would make a good flex. So I resolved to embark on the longest journey I have ever undertaken in this world and acquire an entire stack of dragon heads. To do this, I would need to fly across tens of thousands of blocks of desolate void, reaching as far as 40,000 blocks from end spawn, burning over a dozen stacks of rockets, and acquiring treasures of untold value along the way. But I did it. I got 66 dragon heads. And to those who wish to download the world, I'm truly sorry for the file size, but I think it was worth it. Don't you? Anyway, the central core isn't the only part of Void Station. There are going to be 3 rings, expanding literally hundreds of blocks out from the center, and of course pathways are needed to get to the outer rings. So I started on those, working from the holes I left in the 4th floor at the end of the last video, and going out to where the first ring would eventually be located. I pretty quickly settled on this rather fancy design, but then realized that I needed to throw on some stuff on the top for texturing and depth, so I came up with this and then mirrored it to the bottom. And let me tell you, building upside down anywhere is a pain, but building upside down over the void is a pain and absolutely terrifying. I have no idea how I'm going to pull this off when I get to the 2nd and 3rd rings, maybe spam slow falling potions or something, but sadly I couldn't even finish the 1st ring before day 8,000 closed in on me and I had to stop to make this video. But I don't mind because I made huge progress in the past 1,000 days, and also huge progress on the channel. I'm finally monetized, which means that Super Chat is enabled, which means that a bunch of magnanimous deities were finally able to throw money at me. If your name is on here, thank you so much for supporting me, and if it isn't, thank you also for supporting me by watching this far. Now sit back, relax, or don't, and enjoy the montage.